everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of TechToTransform, the Mantis podcast. This month, I returned to my higher education roots and caught up with Will Marsh, the University of Bristol's Deputy Director of Communications. I found out what the past 12 months has been like for the PR and comms team at Bristol, and asked Will what the biggest challenges have been for communications. Will told me how the PR team has recently restructured, with more of a focus on the student experience at Bristol, which is one of the UK's most popular and successful universities. He also explained how his team have coped and reacted to ever-evolving pandemic-related challenges. And as the UK continues along its long road to recovery, we talked about what student life might be like at universities across the country post-COVID. Take a listen. So it's great, as you say, to catch up, because I wanted to just find out a little bit more about what's happening at Bristol. We've had, everyone's had an absolutely crazy year, but the higher education sector has been hit particularly hard, hasn't it? I've come up with a new set of challenges, shall I say. So I just wanted to kind of get your take on the past year at Bristol, get a bit of an insight from what's happening with your team, and talk a little bit just about higher education in general, if that's all right. So where should we start? So Bristol University, I mean, I'm a Bristolian, and absolutely love the city, and I know the university is a huge part of that, isn't it? Did you just want to kind of give a very, if you can, a brief kind of overview about kind of how the university sits within the city and the ethos, and to give people an idea if they don't know?
Sure, yeah. So you're right. I mean, Bristol University is one of the kind of red brick research-intensive universities, medium-sized, but well over 100 years old now. It's part of the Russell Group of universities. So that's I think that's quite a well-known group of unis, or certainly that if you've either been through school or you've got school-aged children, that's quite often quoted about the Russell Group. That's because that includes Oxford, Cambridge, ourselves, and others like Manchester, Liverpool, Exeter, a whole load. So we sit at the moment. Our campus is because some unis are kind of campus based, so that's where they've been kind of purpose built on a piece of land. Where my previous employer, Bath Unis, like that, so sits on the hill outside of Bath, just on the edge of Bath. Bristol's part of mainly in the Clifton part of the city. Very well known. The most iconic of its buildings is the Wills Memorial Building that sits at the top of Park Street. When I first arrived, I thought it was a cathedral, but it's actually the university building. It's home for the law school and the earth sciences school. It's also where we hold the graduation ceremony. It's a very beautiful building. The uni's medium size. There's around 27,000 students. Not all here at any one time, of course, because they're often off on places. We teach over 200 different programs, disciplines, including having down in North Somerset, we have the veterinary school down at Langford. So we have another site outside of the city where we teach veterinary science. But we also have partnerships. We teach medicine and dentistry. So we obviously have connections here in the city with the NHS and others. And we've been very proud of our medics. I know we're going to talk about this in a minute, kind of the pandemic, but really proud of our students who graduated early to go and help on the front line. We're not the only uni in the city. So there's the University of West of England. There's more. It's a newer uni than us. It kind of has campuses out on the outskirts, but also in the city as well. We have different teaching. We teach different subjects, so we're kind of not in direct competition. But it was obviously an advantage to the pair of us working together because, for nothing else, we have a massive workforce that lives in and around Bristol. In terms of employers, but also when our students are here, we have an awful lot of our students. Both of us living, working, enjoying the, as you said, a really beautiful city. I love working in Bristol. I think it's a great place to be. And it's been weird in the last year, of course, because we've been able to enjoy it as normal. But it's a great place to be. And I think most of all, not all of our staff are very proud of their university. There's things we don't always get right, but I think it's a good place to work.
Yeah, completely. It's really representative of the city. I think it's, as we said, it's a huge part of Bristol. So you mentioned the pandemic there, so that's obviously going to shape most of our chat because it's dominated all of our lives for the past year. What's it been like for you within your role at Bristol then for the past 12 months? How has it changed? How has it affected it?
Well, I mean, I won't go into the kind of personal stuff because it's happened to all of us, hasn't it? From one minute coming to an office and sort of being there, and then the next minute sort of being at home and thinking, well, this might last a week or two, and then here we are nearly at the anniversary of that first lockdown. I mean, because I said we look after media and PR in the office I work in, we've got a big TV screen up where the media team sit. So we have sort of BBC or Sky or something on all the time. And I remember coming in and seeing all the pictures that were coming in from China, when it first was breaking, and thinking, is this going to be as bad as some people are saying? Because I remember the fears around avian flu, some years ago where there was all sorts of pessimistic sort of predictions. So I was kind of upbeat about how it might, not be so bad as I thought. But it became very apparent in mid-March, this time last year, really, that no, this really was big. And you're right, for a university, that there's not just the challenge of the workforce, but it's, of course, and everyone that works in education will know this. It was suddenly from, knowing how you teach and deliver your teaching and your research through to like virtually overnight having to come up with a new way of doing it.
Yeah.
And I think as a sector, we'll probably look back on this and think this was a good thing in a way, not all the misery and the sadness and the tragedy that's gone with it, but a good thing in terms of education that has kind of driven us to change. And I don't think we'll ever change back completely. I think there's quite a traditional mindset in the media, and maybe certainly parents would have it, or people like me, went to uni a long time ago, is that kind of a uni experience is sitting in a big lecture theatre with, hundreds of other people. I mean, of course, we couldn't do that in the pandemic, but I don't think we will go back to just making people sit in big lecture theatres. I mean, of course, different subjects, you're in labs, you're in all sorts of places, but I think it's challenged the sector to think differently about how it delivers degree programmes. And I think it was something Bristol was already thinking about. Because the difference between when I went to uni and now is there's so many more people going to university, so many more subjects, and it's a competitive market out there. And, just having a university degree from somebody as prestigious as Bristol is a great thing, but it's what else have you done with it? And, the university was very conscious of that around how it would support its graduates with their employability. So I think out of this will come some changes. I think what's been, really challenging for the staff and the students, of course, is kind of carrying on in a pandemic and trying to deliver and support our students to have that education they deserve. That's been the real challenge.
Yeah. It's really interesting that you touched on that element of the student experience, which we'll talk a lot about later on. But I was having a very similar conversation with one of our clients earlier this week who works in the sector. And we said, student experience is a really wide catch-all term that is used throughout the sector that can relate to so many different things. It was traditionally, offering that really high quality teaching and learning, but also providing really fantastic facilities so students can have great experiences, isn't it? Have that really great campus and all the tools in which they need to have a great time at university, I suppose. But one of the elements, a significant element of that is, as you say, those links to employment, developing those skills, talking about, those further things that the university offers, where perhaps, throughout the pandemic, that teaching and learning and the on-campus experience was impacted significantly. That kind of the service that you can offer to students afterwards, I suppose, or how it goes on to impact them after they finish their studies, it still very much remains, isn't it? And so do you think, you said we might not ever go back to the way we were, in the way kind of universities run their courses for students. So do you think there might be less of an emphasis on come to our fantastic campus because we've got everything you need and have a great time, to actually this is what you can take away from it? And is that experience, do you think, going to change? It's kind of, I know it's very hard to predict, but by what you've seen.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a student today, I think why not say you want both? This is the point. There's this myth, isn't there, about the tuition fees, that it's the students pay up front, but most definitely it's a big debt that they're leaving university with that sits on their shoulders. And I've got teenage children myself, and I remember when I chose to go to uni, it was more about like you said, it was about, I want to go and experience university life. I hadn't really thought about my career afterwards. I mean, I did earth science, so it was geography and geology, and I've ended up as a journalist and then in PR and comms. So it wasn't an obvious thing for me, but I didn't really think it through. And I think these days, young people are thinking about longer term, their future. So they're making, really quite difficult decisions, big decisions with their families as well. I mean, that's the other thing I noticed in pre-pandemic, being in charge of open days was, maybe in the old days you'd get a bunch of mates traveling by train to their open day to go and have a look around. But now, they're bringing family, other friends, because it's kind of collective decision, because it's such a big thing to choose. And I get that. So I guess my point, is I think our students understandably want a good student experience. It's a bit of a naff phrase, like you said, because what does it actually mean? It's kind of used in HE, but you ask a student experience. But what we mean by that is the whole package, isn't it? You want to be challenged academically. You want to get supported and nurtured in terms of, what you want to do with your studies and where you go next. So that's your point. Is you're right. Universities have a duty to kind of support that, so that when that student leaves, that they're hoping they go on to great things. But equally, it is about that life experience, of living independently, exploring a new place. If it is, a new place, if you're not studying in your own home city, but doing that whole thing of meeting new people, experiencing new things. Every uni that I know has a really thriving students' union, and we work closely with them here at Bristol. But all the opportunities they bring our students, and so what I meant by things will never go back the same is I think students would understandably demand a good student experience, as in, I'm choosing Bristol because the city's great. The uni will give me the support I need. It gives me the opportunities I need, but actually it would still give me the education I want. And I guess what I meant about not going back on that is that, go back to my point about a large lecture theatre. And I remember sitting in those, you would never put your hand up, like you would maybe in a school classroom. You're going from school, a lot of people, where they know everyone, you know your teachers, you can ask those sort of questions, to maybe go to a lecture theatre where there's hundreds of you. You can't ask that question, and particularly if you're an international student where it's not your first language, English. That can be quite daunting. And I think what's been a good thing is the different ways we've had to deliver learning has allowed students to maybe, who wouldn't be so confident about questioning stuff, to be able to do it in a different way. I don't mean that we shouldn't be doing face-to-face, because that's vital on so many subjects for so many reasons. But I just think this, what we've called blended learning, is something that will be here to stay, because I think I think HE could be accused of being kind of a bit last century around how it delivered some of its teaching, in the same way that I've seen with my own children. Their school is a great school, but they kind of weren't ready for being locked down overnight, and being able to deliver teaching online. And I'm sure that school's not unique, and I'm sure we're not unique as a university. I know we're not. How we had to quickly do that, and I'm full of praise for my colleagues, both academic and professional services, who work so tirelessly to turn it round so quickly. And I know students are unhappy about stuff, and I totally get that, because if you think back to the last summer, there was this whole thing about the problem with the A-level results. And, the government were sorting that out. And then it kind of felt we were past the ball there, that don't worry, you'll be able to go to uni. So there was more students maybe than normal coming. And then they're coming to a uni where they're finding it's got COVID restrictions. So you can't do everything you expected in that uni. And I think that's been a real challenge for our students. And, again, I think they've risen to that. And I think, so it's been a really difficult path over the last year, but I think we'll all be better for it. I feel sad for those students, because again, I'm responsible for graduations. Those ones who should have graduated last summer, who haven't had that graduation yet. Those sort of rites of passage, those parts of uni life that we haven't been able to deliver, we're determined we'll give them that day if we can. But I think looking forward, like I said, teaching wise, I think it will make us better. I think if you come to a university post-pandemic, I hope, certainly at Bristol, I think you'll see things will be better. They're not worse, for sure.
And so what's it been like for you and your team, kind of coping and reacting to those challenges, I suppose? You say student expectations are they come to the university and it's at a certain level, and then because of restrictions you're not able to deliver on that. What's that meant for your team in terms of responding and kind of publicly responding as well? Because I know you're always very active with local media and national media as well, as a university. So what was it like kind of getting that message out, and what was your message, I suppose?
Yeah, well, I guess you can split it over kind of the kind of research that we were doing, and then the kind of HE, like all the stuff we just talked about. Because Bristol, when I talked at the start, it's a very well known, prestigious uni, and kind of when the London centric media look out of London, they look west. They're gonna quite often pick on Bristol, for good and bad, which is great. We're a focus of attention. So yeah, so we in the media team that I helped run, we were quite quickly swamped with, like you said, it's the local stories, because people wanted to know locally in Bristol what's happening with students, what's happening with education. But then there's the kind of whole debate. And if you think back over the last year, universities and higher education has been in the news a lot. I said, just thinking about the A-level challenge that happened, we were right at the forefront of that. Then there's the kind of moving students back for the start of term. Then there was the whole Christmas thing, going home for Christmas, and then coming back after then, and now, exams and how we're assessing them. So yeah, there was a massive kind of effort that the team had to put in dealing with that response, and it was quite reactive. I suppose the thing that really helped us focus our minds was that Bristol, like a lot of unis, does an awful lot of research, and it's very hard to get people to tell us in the media team or the PR team what research should we put above the others, because we'll have a news sense about what sells well. Like we do dinosaur research here, and everybody loves to hear a dinosaur story, but is that the kind of research we should focus on? Well, what happened with the pandemic was that we've got world-leading academics here in all kind of different areas of around vaccines, around virology, around the actual around human behavior and all sorts. And so that gave my team a focus for what research we should be promoting. And so, and understandably, and it also, like I said, I'm in charge of internal comms. It makes you feel good to work at a uni where this is happening. It's really nice to sit at home and watch the telly, or pick up a paper, or read an online article and see there's someone from your university talking about something that's helping. So on the research side, that gave us a real good focus. The other bit I know you wanted to talk to me about was, traditionally we've been focused in our team on research, because we're a research intensive uni, and maybe less so on what we've already called a slightly naff term, but the student experience. So talking more about the kind of student stuff. So we'd pre-pandemic planned a kind of restructure in the media and PR team, so that we would have a reactive news service team, very much like I used to work at the police. They had a kind of reactive and a proactive team, because the reactive can take up all your time. So we had a reactive team, then we had the research team, and then we had this student experience role, which was around trying to work more closely with the Students' Union and other bits of the university that are around talking positively about our students. Because we've got some amazing students here at Bristol, and I think they themselves sometimes feel a bit worn down, that quite often the media, all they read about is the kind of bad behaviour things, because there is times when we've let ourselves down, with whatever it be. But actually they do some amazing things for the city, for the uni, and just selling some of those stories, and actually having a new member of staff who's dedicated at doing that has had instant success. So we should have had our graduations in February. That should have just gone last month. We weren't able to have them, of course, but we were able to tell some of the stories of those people that had finished their studies. Really inspiring stories, really lovely stories that we haven't necessarily had the time to do. So I think that's something we're trying to redress the balance. We're still very proud of our research. It's still really important we promote that, but it's also equally important to promote what else, like you asked me earlier, what else goes into being a student at Bristol? Because I think it also is going to help us sell ourselves. If people are reading about people that they can see, that inspires them or motivates them, say, I want to do that, then that's great. Even if they didn't come to our uni, that's great that they're thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to hear that it's going well. And so is this something, is that going to be kind of long-term strategy going forward now, more of an emphasis or on this kind of student success stories and student experience focus? to equally give more equal weighting to research and student experience, or what's kind of the short and long term plan, I suppose?
Yeah, no, it is. It is the long-term plan. I mean, we like I said, we are a research-intensive uni. We do some amazing things here. We're always going to want to tell those stories, but I think it's the whole package. You go back, you know, when you were asking me about why go to uni, why study, you know, why put all that debt into your bank before you've even started your career. These are the sort of stories we want to tell, and I think it's important for our kind of civic role as well in the city and the region that we're telling stories that hopefully make people proud of their university. And you know, and not all that has to be done through the media, but of course it's a great way to do it, is to tell some of those stories. So yes, I think to answer your point, we will never not promote our research. We're you know, that's a massive part of what this university is about. But I think interestingly, these conversations have happened internally as well, is maybe we sometimes underplay the fact that those people doing that amazing research also are standing in front of you in a lecture theatre or in a seminar. You know, those are the people that will teach you when you come to Bristol. And I go back to my point about finding it inspiring to hear about those people and kind of humanising the story. So a bit more about the people as well as the research, and a bit more about the students and what they're doing. I said, you know, we've always done stuff around graduations, but there's so many things our students are doing, entrepreneurial things, you know, sort of charity things, that I think we should tell that story internally and externally, because it can only be a good thing. Because, like I said, it makes us all feel better about ourselves, but also it's giving them the credit they deserve.
Absolutely, yeah. And kind of thinking about the sector as a whole, I know universities are, you know, you're all very different shapes and sizes and different focuses, I suppose. But some universities have always sort of worked like this, I suppose, and had the emphasis more on their students. And then other universities certainly would have been on research, and that is just totally depending on what kind of institution it is, I suppose. But would you say, as we are now hopefully going into you know, recovering from the pandemic, it's looking good so far, but you know, I want to be cautious like everybody else is. It's again another pivotal time for the sector, isn't it? So would you say, is this something that other universities and universities communications teams, if they're not doing so already, is this something that they should be thinking about?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, like you said, comparing us to our friends and neighbours, the University of West England, you know, they'd have far more students that study with them that actually live in the city, you know, and I think that's something we're obviously working to try and increase here at Bristol. But and they'd have different sort of courses and programmes that probably lend themselves into a more direct, obvious route into a career. So yes, they would probably, if you were interviewing somebody from their team, their comms team, they would talk about how they've done that for a long time. I think other unis will. I think other unis will tell you they're doing it, but I think it's really important. I think, like I said to you, I'm also in charge of student and staff comms, and I think what's happened in the pandemic is we've necessarily needed to bombard our students and our staff with information, and I think we've probably overwhelmed them at times. And so I think that's another really good thing. Certainly at my university and what I'm responsible for, I want to take a look at that, and we're working with our students and our students' union to look at that, because we really don't want them to miss out on the important information. And quite often unis can be guilty of kind of shaping themselves in their own vision, you know, instead of actually what the people who are benefiting from what they provide would want to see. You know, so it's kind of a classic thing with the university websites, that they can be slightly impenetrable because, you know, I was trying to explain this to my son the other day, that we actually call them here, we have academic faculties and we have academic schools. And the moment you say school, people are thinking of the school they go to. But actually we're talking about schools within faculties. And, you know, like just explaining some of that, we love an acronym as well. So it's kind of, I think more unis will be doing it, definitely. I think, like I said to you, we were already in a path about trying to redress the balance, that there's a bigger story we can tell about ourselves here, and we need to be better at doing it. And it doesn't mean to diminish what we're talking about, our research, because, you know, like I say to you, we've had some really, really amazing coverage of some of the work that our academics are doing here, because it's both about their research, but it's also about them being experts. You know, you turn on any radio station you'll have professor or doctor blogs from University X, won't you, talking about something.
Yeah.
And I think what's really interesting about the pandemic as well is that I hope it reinforced a bit more confidence in science and academia, hasn't it? I think, some people will doubt what they're being told, but I think we've looked to the science because it's the government's looking to it because it's how we get ourselves out of this. So I think that puts unis and their research in a good place. But I think what we mustn't forget is that once, like you said, it hopefully goes. The big challenge for UK is UKHE is international, because our international students have had an incredibly challenging year. Where they've come over to potentially the other side of the world, had to follow really quite often confusing laws and restrictions around movement and what they can and cannot do, and they're thousands of miles away from their family and friends, not able to enjoy the place they came to see. I don't know how we're being perceived in those countries in terms of how I can guess, how our governments tackled the pandemic. Are they going to want to come when it's okay to? So I'm looking ahead. We're all looking ahead to how we deliver our education in the next academic year in the autumn, but how we're going to make sure that our students understand that, we're going to give them a good, I'm saying it again, student experience.
You can, but once you say it, there's a reason it's used so widely, isn't it? But as you say, it's something, when you say it, you kind of feel a bit, but it kind of covers everything. I suppose this is a very, very difficult question to answer, I think, but you're talking about looking ahead to the autumn there. So I suppose, what does that look like for you and your team, and then as the university, the wider university? I know we're all kind of watching the news every day and hoping that we stay on track, but all being well, we do stay on track. What does that look like for you?
Really good question. That's something we're working through at the moment. The most immediate challenge, of which, when the government announced its roadmap, is that some of our students were having to continue to have sort of face-to-face teaching or some sort of element of blended teaching in this last lockdown, like our medics, because they have to be able to get the experience and qualifications they need. Now, up until Easter, the government has allowed more students, or the universities, to decide which additional students need to come back to be able to, do whatever assessments or learning they need to do to be able to finish their academic year. Then we've got, what do we do after Easter? Now, the government said that it won't say for sure until Easter, what will happen post Easter, because obviously they've got these different dates, haven't they, on their roadmap. That makes it really challenging for the university, because we need to make some decisions now so our staff know what they're doing and our students know. Because the other thing the government has announced that probably has gone sort of underreported because of other news out there, is they've said that students can go home to eat for Easter. So any students who are in same kind of thing we have at Christmas. So any student that's on a university at the moment is allowed to travel to another address, home or otherwise, in a kind of slot that's already started right up to the end of April. So we got quite a lot of short-term problems to manage. But you're right, the next academic year, it would be foolish of us and any uni probably to think everything would be normal. Of course, that's what everybody wishes for and hopes for. But I think in terms of us just saying, right, it's just back to as it was, with thousands of students arriving at the end of September for Freshers' Week and moving in, we're needing to plan for that. We're needing to plan for the various kind of versions of how that will work. We're all also, like I said to you, we're looking at how we deliver that teaching. Because what we want to make sure, and we have to do by law as well, is obviously make sure that what we tell people we're going to give them, we do give them. So that's been quite challenging the last year, of course, because those students who joined us this September, we had in mind what we were able to give them, and then the government, we had to go into another two more lockdowns, didn't we? So it's not been quite as it was. So there's an awful lot of planning, yeah. And in between that, of course, you'll know that the government's now announced that they won't be doing A-level exams as normal. And they brought forward when they give out those results, because I think they learned from the last year around kind of the number of appeals they've had against those results, that that's all got to be factored in for us, because as a uni we get the results and then we can offer the places. So I think there isn't a quiet time planned for a uni. We've got Easter coming up, then we've got to get through the post-Easter teaching and assessments and how we're going to deliver those. Then we move into summer when we're looking to our new students and welcoming a whole bunch of new ones that will arrive in the autumn. I'd like to say to you that everything will be back to normal by then, and I'll be speaking to you from a campus that's surrounded by students, but I can't make that promise. So we have to plan for every eventuality.
Yeah, gosh. So that sounds like everybody who's involved in that process just has to work together, communicate really well, listen to each other all the time, and obviously just be ready to adapt to any changes. I suppose that's all you can do at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this goes more to my role as sort of staff and student comms. We need to make sure our staff are informed and know what's happening. I'm responsible for kind of leading the corporate comms to our current students, but my colleagues in marketing and recruitment are the ones that are needed to communicate with those students who have shown an interest in coming to Bristol. I mean, just practical things like we would normally have an open day here in June and September, an undergraduate open day, where we'd expect to sort of see sort of 10,000 plus people coming in and having a look around our campus. We've already had to say we'll do the June one online. We're aiming at the moment to run the September one in person, because I think it's really important for a student, going back to that point about the kind of commitment, is to see the place they're going to study, actually get a sense of the rooms, the campus, the city. That's what we really want to be able to do. But those are the things that, we're all like everybody in life, is kind of hoping for the best and planning for both best and worst case scenarios. So in the comms side of it, there's a big job to do there to make sure we keep those people that are thinking of coming to study here at Bristol informed, keeping them informed, keeping them interested. But, we can't obviously overpromise where we can't deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting time indeed. I'll be watching closely and hoping that it all works out, obviously, for all of us. But it's really interesting to hear you say that. I think there's going to be sort of long-lasting change, and it does sound like, I've done a lot of work on ed tech in the past, and we saw how technology had a key role and still has a key role throughout the pandemic, just like us talking now, it has a huge role to play. But finally seeing some of those changes break through, and hopefully we can see those into the next academic year, I think will be a really positive outcome of a really challenging situation, I think. So yeah, let's hope we can see some more of that.
Definitely. I mean, we've got big plans here around the kind of a digital strategy as well, about how digital can be at the heart of both, our education and our research. That's, like you said, that's from the kind of platforms we use, like you and I talking now, to kind of the additional role that digital can play in all, our research in terms of our teaching, our connections with partners across the globe. I mean, that's the other thing, I suppose, that suffered in all of this, is that we should have and would have had students studying at partner unis all over the world. We've got academics that work in research partnerships all over the world, and they're still doing that, but it's just tougher, isn't it, when you literally have to do it all on a screen. And I suppose that's the other thing I didn't really think of back at the start, so much at the start of the pandemic. It was more about, oh my goodness, how are we going to continue to deliver the teaching for our students? But there's, of course, how do you continue to do that research when you're stuck at home and your labs, whatever, miles down the road? So that's been a real challenge. And unis have done, you think of all the stuff that's gone on with the vaccine, some of the remarkable work in this country that we've done to get us to the stage there. That's around some of these amazing academics that work at Bristol and at UK universities everywhere. So it's been a shock to the system, but like I said to you, I think it will hold us in good stead for the future, because it's a competitive place out there. That's the other thing about higher education. It is competitive.
Yeah.
And we want to continue to attract the students from all over the world like we do now. But if they feel they're not going to get the value from money from both coming to our uni but also coming to the UK, then they may not come. So we need to kind of tell that story. So that goes back to the comms, doesn't it? About how we tell it, and it's not just how we tell it in this country, it's how we tell it in other countries too.
Absolutely. I'm really glad you said about standing you in good stead for the future, actually, because that's probably leads me to my last question. So we at Mantis, we found that it's been an incredibly challenging time, but also a fantastic opportunity for comms and public relations. We've achieved things that that has enabled us to do that by the challenges that kind of the sectors that we work in has faced. And we've been able to get kind of different messages across that we might not have been able to in the past. So how does it, if you could kind of sort of think about how your team has had to evolve and change over the last year and all the challenges you've had to sort of deal with and try to overcome, does it feel like you're sort of much stronger now and in a sort of a very resilient, robust kind of position for the future? Does it feel like, and although we say, lots of unknowns ahead still, does it feel quite positive for you?
Yeah, definitely. You ask some of my team, do they feel strong and resilient? They say they feel knackered. The kind of constant dealing with stuff. And let's put it in perspective compared to some of the other people in this country who've been working ridiculous hours to keep us safe and treat people that are poorly. But yeah, I think I said to you earlier, didn't I? In terms of our media PR team, we realised we needed to make this change anyway because at Bristol there's lots of research that's going on, and we could sit there and our inbox will fill up with it, with research papers, and we can churn it out. But actually, it was fortuitous one way that the timing of our kind of restructure of how we wanted to work as a team at the same time as a pandemic, like I said to you, it gave us focus for our research because it was around what research are we doing now that's related to the pandemic and coronavirus, and who are our experts that can talk about it. So it gave a focus there. And like I said to you, but it also, we created that resilience around how we deal with the reactive stuff. And it also, we created this new role, which kind of already sat there, but didn't have a dedicated resource around students and teaching and learning. So yeah, I think moving forward, we've had some remarkable, and to the credit of Philippa Walker, who runs the media PR team, we've had some amazing results in terms of media and PR coverage as a university. We just got to keep that going now, because, like I said to you, we're piggybacking off the fact that people are interested in research again more than they maybe were, because we're at the forefront of tackling this horrible pandemic, but equally because they're trusted sources. So I think we just got to keep pushing on. We've tried new bits of software. We've pitched into various websites that we may not have done in the past. So I think it's been a really good time for the team. I know they might not thank me for saying that because it's been hard work, but I think out of the end of it, they can be really proud. And I think in terms of storytelling, we made some massive progress. And I think we just got to keep going because, like I said to you, unis are very collegiate with each other, but they are necessarily competitive sometimes. We want people reading our research, not someone else's.
Brilliant. It sounds like you have to buy all of your team a drink then as soon as you can.
Well, fortunately the pubs are shut, so keep money in my pocket for now.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Well, absolutely lovely to chat to you. Good luck for the next few months, and we'll keep in touch, and we'll check in again and see how you're getting on.
Thanks, Rebecca, and thank you. I hope it's been helpful and really good to catch up with you again.
Yeah, brilliant.